All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's How to Get a Job in Web3. I'm very excited to have both Kevin and Vanessa here with us, who are both experts in the field. And I'm also very excited to see so many people on the call. If you want to do me a quick favor and just introduce yourself in the chat and where you're from, you're in Brisbane, Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, Melbourne, Sydney, wherever you're from, just to introduce yourself into the chat. And what we're going to do is we're going to just dive right into it. So Kevin's going to kick us off. Then we're going to pass it over to Vanessa, and then we are going to jump into some Q&A. So I do encourage you, as we progress through tonight's event, please put your questions in there. If you have a question that comes off right at the top of your head, you can pop it in there, and I will be keeping track of them, and we will open it up for Q&A at the end. So I really encourage you to ask your questions. Today is all about you learning as much as possible about how you can get a job in the Web3 space. So Kevin, do you want to quickly introduce yourself, and or do you want me to share your slides first?
Give me my opening slide, then I'll talk to my opening slide and introduce myself with my opening slide. How about that?
Let's do that. And then I'm going to go view, enter full screen.
Great. Well, firstly, thanks a lot, Danielle. For those of you who don't know, Danielle works tirelessly to get as many people in the world into Web3 and organizing stuff like that. If you've been here 10 minutes ago, you realize all the little challenges that Danielle sort of goes through to make sure these things happen so smoothly. So once again, thanks again for organizing this, Danielle. You know, the work that you do is critical to the Web3 sort of ecosystem growing and developing and becoming the mainstream sort of, reality that we all hope it is one day. So look, thanks again for that. Hey, look, so my presentation, as you can see, is going to be broken down to sort of the research side of things, the presentation of yourself, how you outreach, and once you get that outreach, how you interact. Now, I'm going to be working on the assumption that a lot of you already have a general base knowledge of what Web3 is and a general idea of where you see yourself going in that space. And also assume that some of you are coming from the community, marketing, tech, finance things. So I'm going to keep my presentation sort of relatively high level and not go too deep into the tech or the community, the marketing space, to try and sort of make this presentation as appropriate to as many people as we have on the call today, and not go down too many rabbit holes. But look, before I start, I just would like to sort of say, a little bit about, the time that we're in right now. Being in the world of Web3 recruiting, I've been doing it for 2.5 years after working in sort of generalized recruiting for about 20. So it's still relatively new to me as well. And it's and things can be very good or very bad at times. So the term that we like to use sometimes is kind of it's champagne or razor blades in the world of Web3 and crypto, and we're sort of we're not drinking champagne. Let me just say that right now. So we've in recruiting, we see people who've even got several years really relevant, fantastic experience, who still aren't able to sort of get back into the market. So my message to all of you out there is, like, don't be despondent that you're having a challenge right now. There's people who've got experience also having challenges, but the one thing that all of my research and conversations sort of tell me, when it turns fast, and you need to be there, and you need to have all the contacts. So, the stuff that myself and Vanessa will be talking about today is about planting all of those seeds so you are ready when this market turns at some point. So, don't get frustrated. It's not you, it is the market, and things will turn around, and hopefully some of the things that we sort of a few tips we give you today will make sure that you're in the right place at the right time, talking to the right people in the right way to really benefit from what we all hope is going to be a fantastic, 2024, 25. We're all going to sort of redefine our careers and hopefully, augment our financial position as well. So look, let's get stuck into it. So Danielle, first slide, please. Okay, now, like all good things in life, the proper research is absolutely important. And the good thing is, in the world of crypto and blockchain and Web3, there is a vast number of places we can go and look for the right amount of information to set your career search project in the right direction. I've only listed a couple here, but great things to read every day. Cointelegraph, Decrypt. Just Google anything on Google News and crypto news at any point in time. You'll have some fantastic results. If I'd say anything, make sure you get yourself a Twitter account and research that. I think it's called X now. And the other place, which a lot of people only look for prices, but is a great resource, is CoinGecko. CoinGecko lists all of the new listings, and sometimes it's easy to get into a smaller founder-led project early, as opposed to trying to get yourself into consensus or something. So CoinGecko is a great place to look for newly launched coins to go and research. The other organization which I find incredibly valuable is Crunchbase. Crunchbase is a website which actually outlines all of the venture capital money flows into all different sectors. So if you go in there and you start looking for blockchain, crypto, you can see who's getting the money, right? The biggest challenge that we've had is that a lot of companies have not been funded. And Crunchbase really is what we call the upstream resource to see who's actually got the money. And if you can get in there first and see who's got the money coming in, it's a good chance for you to put yourself in front of the right people. Okay, now I've got a couple of links, and I think Danielle, you might be able to share these afterwards with the group. Just places you can go to get a concise, focused list of companies that you would like to approach. Obviously, we live in Australia, so blockchainaustralia.org has a members list. There are 140 companies listed there, 140, all different sizes, different types of businesses, but a fantastic resource to see who is in Australia, who's focused in Australia. And if you're based here, which I assume many of you are, is a really incredibly efficient resource to see who's doing what. The other one, I came across this just the other day, and I was staggered, to be honest, to find how many companies. I mean, I spend my life researching blockchain companies, especially in the gaming sector. And I went to the Blockchain Game Alliance company directory. There were 284 companies listed, and everything from Animoca brands to companies you've never heard of. And all of them have a website. It's a really fantastic place to go and look for places. If NFTs and metaverse, Web3 gaming is your thing, this is your go-to link. It is an amazing resource of incredible variety of companies. The other area of research I think is really valuable, and this is just one example at CoinFund, is private equity companies, venture capital companies that focus on investing in Web3. Most of them will have a portfolio list of all the companies they invest in. And a lot of these companies will only have 5 to 10 people. And oftentimes in this portfolio list, they will have live jobs open. So a very easy way to see some of the smaller 5 to 10 person companies that have got some money, because they're invested by a fund, they've got some money and they'll probably be hiring. So CoinFund is just one. So that one specifically, CoinFund, which is Web3 native, they have 60 portfolio companies they've invested in. So in that list alone, we've got close to 500 companies that you can go and research. So look, there is an amazing amount of content out there. So get out there, start researching, and see where you want to go. Next slide, Danielle. Okay, this is the one that everybody's got a theory on, and before we started today, I had a bit of a glimpse at Vanessa's slide, and she had a slide on personal branding. So it all sort of comes in to the same sort of concept, and it's really, really important stuff. So look, the go-to resource for most job searching, as much as we like it or don't like, is LinkedIn. We can't avoid it. It's still a core tool. So when you are setting up your LinkedIn profile, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, so I think Vanessa will be able to give a lot more insight into this. The things in my experience there, keywords. The words you put on your LinkedIn profile are very important. So if you've studied a programming language, if you worked on a specific blockchain, that more technical language, the better. It's actually a little bit counterintuitive, but more technical language is better. And the other thing, which is like really unusual for me, who's been recruiting outside blockchain before this, was putting your side projects in there. So I've actually managed to get people interviews and jobs who were not working in Web3, but actually were doing stuff on the side and doing personal projects, and they were actually got a lot of attention. And the reason that it does work very well, because what it does show people is you're so committed to the world of Web3 that you're prepared to do projects outside your full-time work. So don't feel bad about it. Don't make it look smaller. Make sure you accentuate your side projects. If you've done your own NFT minting, for example, make sure it features in your LinkedIn profile. And have two resumes. Have one which is standard text, which is easily uploadable into an applicant tracking system. Sometimes these systems are very sensitive. Have one with lots of graphics and it looks beautiful, but also have one which is standard sort of text only, because sometimes if you do get too creative with some of these resumes, the big companies won't accept them. They just, their technology is not good enough. The other thing you should always put on there is all of your online courses. There are so many courses that can be done. And if you're seen to be doing 3 to 4, and they can be branding courses, there's so many coding courses around Java, Solidity, etc. Make sure you put them on there and put them at the top. And for those of you who are in the technical channel, if you like, having a GitHub link is absolutely critical. Oftentimes when I present candidates to a client, they won't even look at their resume. They'll go straight to their GitHub link. So even if you've just got a few projects on there, it's really important. Just start one and understand how it works, because it's probably the number one thing that many companies look at for technical recruiting. And the other thing is, have a Telegram account. It is the number one way that people communicate with each other. And oftentimes I'll meet people and they go, what's your Telegram? They don't want your phone number. They don't want your email. They want your Telegram account. So get one. And there's so many amazing Telegram job groups out there that you can follow. It's a critical tool. It is as important as having a mobile phone. The other one, the second last one, Discord. Now, this is an amazing way to sort of understand what is happening with different projects. And I'll get to that a little bit later, how you can use that. But having a Discord account is absolutely really important. It's a very kind of confusing sort of piece of communication software for the uninitiated, but there's a lot of crypto natives in there doing a lot of stuff, and it gives you an insight into opportunities to get in and contribute to different projects. And I guess my last piece of advice on presenting yourself out there is don't use an avatar. Use your real picture. A lot of people want to put the NFT picture or put that up there. There's a lot of fake candidates out there, and most fake candidates use an avatar. So it sounds cool, looks cool. Don't do it. Vanessa might have a different opinion, but that's my experience of doing that. Next slide. Okay, the outreach. The one thing which doesn't work is emailing someone cold and asking them for a job. It really does sort of shut them down immediately. I found when I started proof of search 2.5 years ago, how I got a lot of my clients was actually emailing founders and complimenting them on their site and their project, going, this is an amazing idea that you've got. And people are just so hardwired to sort of be positive towards praise. So actually, sometimes just reaching out when you're doing research on LinkedIn and doing stuff, just emailing the founder going, I really love what you're doing. Great use case, great visuals. I think you've got a great team. Congratulations. Just sending out random compliments to founders and heads of HR will get you on there, and then you start a conversation. So it's a really simple thing to do, and it will get you the most amazing results. And the other thing is, and I've actually got I think I've misspelled suggestions there, but anyway, and I'll tell you a story about a fellow in Brisbane that some of you may know, a guy called Tommy, who's the head of product for SwiftX in Brisbane. He was just a normal, user of crypto, working, on the very early version of SwiftX. And he basically reached out to the founders and just said, look, hey, I'm a user. I've seen this and this and this. Maybe you want to do this and this and this with your project. And he was actually employed by them. And he's now, I think, the 4th most senior person at SwiftX. So getting in, if you really love an area, really love a project, getting in and sending the founder a suggestion will put you on their radar. It's really, really underappreciated way to engage with someone. Just giving someone an idea. Hey, I like your project. You might want to do this. The other thing to get on people's radar and reach out to them is if you see a story about a specific project that you'd like to work for, share it on your LinkedIn and tag the senior management and say, this is a great project, keep an eye out for it. And when you're a founder and you're launching a Web3 project, if someone shares it and promotes your brand, you notice it a lot. And you're not asking for a job. All you're doing is trying to help and draw attention to what they're doing. And the positive feedback you'll get will be really, really surprising. You'll be surprised. Look, point 3 here, and I'll go back to what Danielle does so well is running events. It's just invaluable. IRL, in real life of things, just to get to know the personality, get to meet a founder, connect with people. Any chance you get, I drive, I fly, I go to all sorts of events just to meet people, and the personal connection post-COVID has real value. And I'll share another story that I heard. This one chap was, really desperately looking for a job. He had some solidity experience, a lot of work experience, and he put his hand up at an event and asked a really good question to the founder about their project and got a job offer. So, getting in there, interacting, asking interesting questions is really, really important. So get out there and do it. And it's a bit of a hassle sometimes, but do it. And the other thing I'd say, when you're really reaching out to different Web3 founders, look, I think you'd work well with this company because a lot of companies are looking for real world applications for their technology. And if you look at a company and you're really into this specific area of DeFi or this area of the metaverse or digital identity, and you reach out to the founders going, I think you should deal with these companies. I think these companies would be a great use case to work with you. I think you should put that together. This is what they're looking for. Most Web3 founders are looking for use cases and an ability to go mainstream. So suggesting partners is very, very important. Another thing, this is coming back to what I said about open source, about your Discord channel, having a Discord account. Volunteering in open source projects is a really fantastic way. And I've spoke to dozens of people, literally, who've actually got their jobs through going on with their Discord account, joining the group and volunteering to help out on projects from coding to community to marketing, branding, or UX, UI. So it sounds a bit weird going and doing stuff for free, but people really appreciate it. And it's where a lot of particularly early people in crypto got their start, was going in and just being part of a community. It's a community-led sector. And it takes a bit of work, but it can be really worth it. The other thing is, people are so attuned and so sensitive to cut and paste emails, cut and paste messages. If you think you're being really smart by saving, yourself an hour or so by like sending the same message to 100 people, I can pick it. Anyone can pick it. Personalizing that message to everyone is absolutely critical. It takes a bit more time, but it will unlock several opportunities. And finally, hackathons. Get in there and sign up, and you will learn, you'll network, and it's another fantastic way in to get yourself noticed, which is what it's all about. Next. Okay, so look, you've spent time, you've managed to get on the radar of people, and you've finally got yourself a conversation or a meeting with someone that you want to work for, and it can be pretty nerve-wracking. It all comes down to what you say in these meetings. So a couple of tips when you get in there, before you talk to anyone, jump on their socials, see what they're talking about right now, because they've probably got a recent announcement. Bring up the most recent piece of news, know what they're talking about, so when you talk about meet them, you're actually talking about what they're interested in. And the other thing is a really simple thing, but you'd be surprised at the effect it has. Is you talk to someone like, ask their origin story. How did you get into Web3? How did you get in? How did you get your start? It's because everybody loves telling that story. They love it. And off they go. I just sound fascinated. How they do it. What did you do it? What was it like? And I love talking to these crypto OGs. Like, what was it like in 2017? Trying to explain this to people, and you get them on a run, and they love it. So always ask their origin story, and look at their project and talk about the most recently released feature. They love it. It's about, when you're interacting with these, getting to talk about their project will make you look really, really good. And it can be quite easy, because a lot of these people have been, podcasts are everywhere. So if you're interviewing, got to get a conversation with someone, Google them. You'll probably find an interview with them somewhere, and just say, look, I really love what you said about this. I wrote about this, and everybody's got a bit of an ego. Everyone go, oh yeah, you saw my interview. Oh, you read my article. Trust me, it really, really works. And just be humble. Ask, like, what would you do if you're me? What should I do now? Because people love giving advice too. A couple other tips: know who their competitors are, because a lot of people, they'll go to an interview and they'll say, oh, what do you know about us? Oh, I read you the website. You do cross-chain liquidity, and that's it. It's like, oh, so you compete, your competitors probably these guys. I see you've got an investment from this company and this company. It's simple things, and you will look completely in a different league than any other candidate. You look like you're completely invested in their funding journey and their competitive landscape. Simple thing, but it shows that you're already one of their team. My last thing, and this is amazing. I had a really good candidate go all the way to the end, and they rejected him at the end. He was the perfect candidate. He goes, yeah, he didn't read our white paper. It's a really simple thing. If you don't read that, they think they almost get insulted. So it's a really thing. So that's my final point on this one. But on my last slide, just a couple of things I need to say. Look, as my slide, everybody starts somewhere. Yeah. All the crypto OGs all had to make the choice to move on and take the risk and do this. So don't feel embarrassed. Don't feel intimidated. Feel excited that, everyone else had to start where you are. And the good thing is, it's a sector where they respect people for coming in and wanting to get in and try. I mean, this is what Danielle's whole life is around, getting these people across that line to make the move into this space. So, I guess one thing, I mean, one of the most frustrating things for me as a recruiter is that, like, unfortunately, it's challenging for me to help brand newbies. Unfortunately, the world that I live in, they only want to pay a fee for someone who's got 3 to 4 years experience. And, you know, sometimes a recruiter can sometimes get in the way because we charge fees, but we're always here to help and give you some advice. But, you know, these personal connections, you know, get out there, you know, make compliments, make suggestions. Don't actually ask for a job, weirdly enough. It's my advice. Just make contacts, you know, demonstrate your passion, your knowledge, and your willingness to help on a project, and, you know, good things will happen. Maybe not right now, but in the next 6 months to 9 months, things will get better. So don't worry, things will get better. But thanks again, Danielle, for your invitation, and I'll hand over to Vanessa.
Oh, welcome. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. A lot of really great insights there. And so just before I pass it over to Vanessa, I just want to share a quick story. Well, a few different things that I'll touch on. My entire career started with me volunteering and, you know, basically doing an unpaid internship because I just wanted to learn. And one of the things you're talking about being in Discord channels and Telegram channels, when I was in Melbourne at Blockchain Week, I was up speaking in one of the panels, and then afterwards this guy reached out to me who wanted to learn more about the courses. I know I didn't really introduce myself at the beginning because I think a lot of people already know on the call that I teach the diploma of applied blockchain at TAFE Queensland and in Victoria, that a lot of people don't know about the program. So anyways, he reached out. I had a discovery call with him, told him about the course, how he could potentially get started, et cetera, et cetera. And then I asked him, how did you get in that room? Because Blockchain Week, you know, it was, you were either a member or you had to be invited by somebody. It wasn't just the general population. He was following, it's XDC network, was following, found their project, was following them on Discord's, Twitter. Then he saw that the Dr. Fisher, who I was on the panel with, was going to be there in Melbourne. He reached out to somebody, actually Sean White, who's the community representative, and they said, oh, well, we can get you on the list. They got him on the list. Now, I had a conversation with Sean. I was like, oh, you know, this Daniel guy that you invited along, I was like, he might actually do the course, and he's going to build, if he does the course, he's going to build it out on his proof of concept or his use case on XDC. And he's now on their radar to potentially work for XDC, all because he was just following their project. So I just wanted to share that quick story before I pass it over. So being a complete beginner and a new, there's a lot of different things, and we'll get into some Q&A afterwards. But it is very, very powerful. Getting involved in finding a project and being active in their community is definitely one of the things that you can start doing now. Especially, I know I have a lot of students on this call to set yourself up for success. But that's enough for me for at the moment. Thank you very much, Kevin. We will open it up to some Q&A at the end, but I'm going to pass it over to Vanessa Marino, all the way from Melbourne, but actually originally from America. So I'll hand it over to you and you can share a little bit more about yourself.
Thanks, Danielle. Thanks, Kevin, as well. I second basically everything you've said, including your appreciation for everything Danielle does in this space. So I'll just go ahead and kick off. And also just touching on the point with the avatar, absolutely right. Definitely not having an avatar as your profile pic, despite what the space, despite all the avatars we might own. You know, I think it's really important that we show up with ourselves and personalize our branding as well. But anyways, I'll jump into the presentation now. Just one moment. There we go. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Yeah, so basically just a breakdown of actually,
You've
sorry.
got it on slideshow.
Yeah,
It's going to
okay.
keep, yeah, that's what I did before. So you just need to just go share, because the slideshow is just automatically going to go through. So just stop sharing for a second.
Yeah.
Reshare. That's what happened to me the first time when I hit slideshow.
All right, I might just go play and pause if that's all right.
Yeah, do that.
Okay. Awesome. Well, yeah, I'm Vanessa, by the way. So I've been in the space since 2017. Began working with Banksa, who formerly were bitcoin.com.au. So I joined the HR team there and helped them recruit and build the team. Later went on to work with Caleb and Brown here in Melbourne, a cryptocurrency brokerage, and have since been involved in some other cryptocurrency projects on my own as well. I think I owned my first NFT probably in about 2018. Sorry, the years kind of blend in all together just because the space moves quite quickly. But yeah, that's just a brief intro on myself. But yeah, just gonna get straight into it. So actually, let me just go back because I missed that first point. But basically, the topics I'm going to touch on that Kevin also covered is the job hunting process, personal branding, the interview process. And as I was going through this, I actually had a thought just towards the end, and I was like, well, what are some things candidates should also look out for when they're in the job market? Because as Kevin mentioned, there's so many companies listed online, and basically once you start doing the research, you start realizing, all right, I need to start narrowing the companies I actually want to work for down. And so I kind of just added some tips around how to do that, some questions to ask as well. So let's get straight into it. So can you see that all right, Danielle?
Yeah, it says
Yeah.
job hunting. If
Job
you want.
hunting. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so I guess just where we get started, like Kevin said, LinkedIn, although some people might like Twitter more when it comes to crypto and think that, you know, that's where the communities lie. That's true, but when it comes to personal branding and in the professional world, I think that it's a lot easier to get the conversations going and understand where basically the companies that are actually hiring at the moment, because I don't think that based on my experiences, the companies that are hiring right now, whether it's in crypto, whether it's in Web3 or Web2, you're going to find a lot more of that content on LinkedIn versus Twitter. But Twitter is great for community cohesiveness, which is obviously a massive element within the Web3 space. So yeah, so being part of the LinkedIn community, Twitter communities, Twitter X communities, and he also mentioned Discord, which I think is incredibly important. Feel free to use your avatar on Discord. I think that's a place for you to use your avatars, but LinkedIn, like Kevin mentioned, definitely using a professional photo so that way we can engage professionally on LinkedIn is really important as well. Engaging crypto communities, definitely showing up to in real life events is also really important. I think that you kind of have to go back to fundamentals of networking to then be able to apply that across the board in other social media platforms. So one of the main important things that I think is important when you do show up to in real life events is just listening. I think that some of the mistakes I've seen people make coming to the events, just asking for jobs, as Kevin mentioned, and kind of claiming themselves as experts sometimes can be a little bit off-putting to people that actually are hiring, because since the space is continuously evolving, one thing you'll realize more and more as you show up to these events is nobody really is an expert. There's always things to learn, which is also good news because that means it's a flat playing field, and you know, we're all learning together. So yeah, so I think that in real life events are a great place to start, and again, doing your research. So when it comes to kind of narrowing down which kind of companies you want to work with, market mapping is a great tool. So having a very basic CRM, whether it's in an Excel sheet, a Google Doc of all the companies that you actually really want to work for, because you've narrowed that down, find out who their competitors are, find out who works for those competitors, what they're doing, what are the skill sets that they have, Do you have them? What kind of skill sets do you have to get there? So I think it's really important to not only connect with them, but engage in conversations with them. You'll find quite quickly that, as Kevin mentioned, when you compliment people, that on something that they've done, on a podcast they've spoken on, that they're more than likely to engage in the conversation, and sometimes we'll be happy to even mentor you as well. So again, showing up to in real life events is really important, because it's more than likely you're going to build those connections there. However, obviously the Web3 space is global and digital, so those key elements of networking are transferable as well. But showing up to in real life events, I think, are really crucial to the job hunt. Let's see. There we go. All right. So personal branding. Again, this can be applied whether you're searching in Web 2 and Web 3, but especially important in Web 3, when we're speaking about that community cohesiveness, because companies and people, sorry, not companies, people that work for companies and people that build companies like working with people that they like. So you really want to define your personal brand, who you are, what your purpose is. Defining your purpose is also especially crucial, because once you do that, you give your brain a problem to solve, and you keep redefining that, and subconsciously or consciously you start solving those problems. So give yourself a purpose, make sure you understand how you want to be known in the space. It's a relatively small space, wherever your geographical location is. You definitely want to make sure you understand how you're presenting yourself, how you're stepping in, whether that's your online presence or whether that's in real life. And yeah, so I think I've touched on the in real life and online presence so far, and I'm just going to move on to the interview phase. So interviewing for Web3, there's a couple of things I think that are that just off the top of my head, I think were more important than others, because I think when it comes to the technical aspects and when it comes to your skills assessments, those are very basic elements that need to be prepared. But I think one thing that's commonly overlooked, because we kind of fall into a bit of a trap when it comes to especially when there's a bit of a bull market kind of flowing with the hype, and we kind of miss the mark on really understanding what a company's mission and values and what their company culture is, and really understanding what the company is aiming to solve, and how it actually stands out from their competitors. And in doing this research, you're going to realize that having that conversation at an interview flows a lot easier, and it's really easy to communicate why you want to work with the company. I've had candidates who were incredibly qualified on paper. They had the skill set, and they couldn't actually tell me what we were building, and they also didn't know anything about the team as well. And it was quite clear that they weren't the cultural fit for the company that they were interviewing for. So that definitely do your research before walking in, and again, that applies for any company, whether it's Web 2, Web 3. Those elements are incredibly crucial to have in mind. And then I've just listed on the right here some topics to be prepared to discuss. And these are ways to showcase what you've done, like aside from your resume and basic experience that you do have, making sure that you're able to communicate in a well-rounded, how you are well-rounded and equipped to work for whatever company that you're applying for. And let's just assume you've done your research and you've taken your time. Like Kevin said, this doesn't happen overnight. considering the market as well, it's a really good time to make sure that you do define and redefine who you are, continue doing the research, and continue showing up, basically. A couple other things to make sure you're considering is that the company is also a right company for you to work at. So before you accept, a couple things to understand is the roadmap and future plans of a company, the team composition, what your role is and how you'll be working with the team. I think far too often, if we don't ask these questions, sometimes when you do join the company, you'll see in a month, 2 months or 3 months, the expectations might not be what you expected, and vice versa. So these are some elements to consider before you actually accept the job as well. And basic understanding around the funding and financial stability of the Web3 companies. As Kevin mentioned, there's several of them. There's a lot moving in the space. So making sure that you're making the right career move, especially if you're moving from Web 2 to Web 3, that obviously it is an opportunity that can bring stability as well as creative opportunities. And yeah, so regulatory compliance is also a crucial element, making sure that the company understands what the landscape looks like, whether it's whatever geographic location it is, it's going to vary, but understanding that you're looking towards the long-term success of the company, and they're doing the same, it will be incredibly crucial to make sure, again, that there is that career stability for yourself. But yeah, that's all on my end. I hope that kind of filled in a couple gaps when it comes to making sure that you're finding the right opportunity, as well as doing the research to make sure you're well aware and equipped with all the jobs in the Web3 space as well.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. That was fantastic. So many great points that you've covered, and what I loved here about, before you take the job, for me, my personal experience when I very first got in, it was like anyone that would offer me anything, I would say yes to. I'm now at a point where I'm a lot more selective. If I have startup companies that want me to, come on board and will offer me, some equity or some tokens, I'm a lot more selective. And you do have to be careful in the Web3 space. I heard a story of another company that, that just went over, and a friend's trying to help her find a job because it's very common. And we were actually having this conversation that we don't know how they can raise millions and millions of dollars and then go bust, a year later. So it is one of those important things. Maybe when you're very, very first starting off, you might not care as much because you just want to get any foot in the door and any experience whatsoever. But you do need to start to become a little bit more selective, understand how to read the white paper, understand their tokenomics. This company was like, oh yeah, but we're going to offer you all these tokens. I'm like, yeah, but I don't see them being worth anything. So at a certain point, when your experience or your value that you're giving to them, and they're paying you in tokens, which you're not sure if those tokens are going to be worth anything at a certain point. So you do have to learn how to kind of do an analysis of the time and energy that you're putting in. All right, so we do have a couple of questions. Kevin, if you're still there, one of the questions for you was that you mentioned Telegram job groups. Are there any notable ones to take to check?
Can you see me? Am I on there?
Yep.
Yes, there's one incredible one called #3. I'll put in the link. It's incredible. It is just an incredible flow of a great job. To be honest, they are a little bit more senior experience, but it does give you a really good drumbeat of which companies are hiring. So I'll say it's called Jobs ## or something. So it's on Telegram, but I'll send you the link to send out to everyone in the group afterwards. It's really, really good.
Okay, or you can just put it in the chat if you've got it there.
Okay, I'll pull it up and find it. Okay, cool.
So while you're bringing that up, this question's for Vanessa. At what point in the interview can you ask about, adoption and equity? I feel that if I ask too late, I might be a waste of time if the returns are not reasonable, but can't just ask them first up. So when is the best time to be asking about equity and,
Yeah, I think it depends on the level of the role as well. So obviously if it's a C-suite level role, it's probably better to ask earlier rather than later. But if you're looking to get your foot in the door, I think that salary, I think it just to give yourself more opportunity. Obviously you don't want to price yourself out, but it's okay to share what your salary expectations are, just to make sure that there's that transparency from the start. But definitely just to make sure that you're across different salary ranges in the current market. I think I'd probably wait towards the end to make sure that you're not pricing yourself out too early.
All right, thank you. I have a question about, you both mentioned hackathons, and I know myself, I don't consider myself technical, and I've always thought to be a part of a hackathon, it was more for devs. What is your experience? And I know a lot of the students that are on the call, they're doing the diploma, they're not really going that technical route. Do you still think it's valuable for them to be joining these hackathons, and if so, why? Who wants to take that one first?
I think it could be a not the best use of your time, and I think if you did turn up, people going, "What are you doing here?" So I think when you're coming from a non-technical background, it's ideas around. I guess that one of the most, if you're a non-technical person, some of the entry points is through community management, and community managers are kind of a blend of a lot of different roles, from marketing to customer service to general problem solving. So sometimes that can be a better way, but it's a really good point. You've actually got me thinking. There's no sort of non-technical sort of version of hackathons, is there? I mean, I think there could be marketathons or brandathons or something like that they could do.
I just thought maybe, if you were that there's still the ideation phase of it, they still need somebody to help. There's scrum masters, there's project managers. So would it still be valuable just to be involved in that, learning the lingo, just being a part of it, even though you're not necessarily doing the coding side of things? Just because you both had hackathons in there, so
so I think that on it, in addition to that as well, there are some days where there's some time slots where they have panels and socials, whether it's I've seen hackathons where there's socials on the first day and on the last day, and the teams that are building, I think, have from what I've understood, do appreciate the support of just having people contribute to what they're building, whether it like you said, whether it's at the ideation phase, and just pretty much being there to be part of the conversation. I think on Kevin's point, I can see why it might not be the best use of your time. But if you do have the time in a market like this, then definitely rock up.
Yeah, and I think I just answered Matthew's question in the chat, which I think was a really good role. Product people, which is kind of the crossover role between the sort of the marketers and the technical people, understanding that. So I think definitely if you're a product person, there's real value in going to these things, because you're very close to what they're producing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've never personally participated in a hackathon. I'm actually thinking of organizing one. So yeah, I'm just interested in learning a little bit more about them. But I definitely, even just for myself, just being amongst it, I think that you could get a lot of learning. So yeah, maybe if you're time poor, maybe not so much. But if you've got the time to do it, I think it could be a great way to learn. And you never know if you show good initiative, or if you're a good organizer or project manager or whatever, maybe some of the dev firms that would be there would be like, you know what, we need somebody like you in our team. And actually,
Oh, for sure. I think you make a really good point. I mean, just while you might not be active in the hackathon, I think being around and seeing which projects are really active, and there's one thing leads to another when it comes to a great piece of tech generally needs a good community pretty quickly. So being around and just building, it's another, I guess it's another in real life opportunity.
Yeah, and my first job that I had was at a venture studio, and the amount that I learned, actually, it's funny, I'm doing university now, and it's like everything that they're teaching me at university, I learned doing in that beginner entry role. And it was only because of my attitude and my passion for the industry, not because I had the experience. They were willing to train me on the job. All right, well, if there's any last burning questions, now's the time, because we're going to wrap it up. But I really would like to say thank you to Kevin and Vanessa for their times. I think there was a lot of valuable insights and information in there. I triple back everything that they've said. My number one thing when students come to me and are studying the diploma, and I know there's many of them on here, I can teach you the core basics and fundamentals, but it's really getting out there, networking. I love all of the commenting, getting into groups or channels. So you need to find some projects or some things that you like and just try to be prominent in that space. And right now, don't expect to be getting a job right away in the space, but if you start grooming and start getting active in the community now, when that next bull run comes around, it will make your jobs a lot easier to get a job in the space.
Right place, right time. Yeah, you'll be fine. Just keep talking, make those contacts, and they go, "Who's that guy that I met at that event? I think he'd be really good for that. I should give him a call. I liked him. I liked her." It's that's how some of the best careers are started.
Well, I've never actually applied for a job in the Web3 space, so it's hard for me when somebody was asking me. They're like, where should I go and apply for jobs? And I'm like, I don't know, because every job I've got is just been because I've gone to my whole career started by me going to meetups. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to organize meetups. And so I do think that it's quite powerful. And there's also ways I've heard of so many people getting jobs because they are chatting in Discord, and then, they become a moderator at first, right? And then they're a moderator in the Discord channel, and then they get to know the founders. And then the next thing you know, they create a DAO, and then they get a job as the community manager in the DAO. So it really, not saying that you can't do it the other way, but from my perspective, and maybe my last question to both of you, depending on maybe those higher roles, like those C-suite roles, but those entry level kind of roles, do you think it's more just being who you meet and being active in the community rather than submitting a job, like a resume, like applying for a job?
Yeah, I'd absolutely. When I think back to internal recruiting, and thinking back to how many applicants we would get, I mean, we're talking thousands. So I'd much rather have read through a resume that was referred to by somebody, or it was somebody that I met who had a great conversation with, and I already knew that he was kind of light years ahead just because I spoke to him one-on-one. I think that goes a really long way.
Yeah, no, I think that just personal connections, just working in recruiting, it's a really it just puts you far and above. If you've actually made the effort to go out and meet people, contribute, you're automatically ahead of 90% of the people who just sit there and spam their resume to everyone, and I hope that magic happens. So yeah, it's just being out there, and it's trust me, if you submit your resume into job portals and think that's going to be the way you're dreaming. It just doesn't happen. I'll take you back to I'm a bit older, so a funny story. back in the 90s when I was working for Robert Walters. The market was getting better, and people had to send letters, put CVs in envelopes and post them to a recruiter. And my company at the time, they got the finance director for Ferrari in Europe. This is off the back of a recession. So they literally got 500 applications, and the recruiter just picked up one pile of letters and just threw it in the rubbish. And his management, what are you doing? And he goes, and the recruiter goes, well, I guess my client wouldn't want someone who's unlucky. And so it goes to show that there is really a lot of, you're leaving it up to luck by just sending your resume into a LinkedIn job ad and not doing anything else, because you'll have an internal talent acquisition person who'll only really be able to get through half of that. So your chances of getting in there are pretty low. But you get out there and start contributing, and I think the role of community manager is a really interesting and evolving one, and it's also a great entry point to get in there. It connects with everyone in the firm, and you can contribute here, but you can really expand your role in that company. So yeah, there's different ways in. So.
Yeah, so I think that maybe the last thing I'd say, even just kind of like the hackathons, maybe when I was going through a bit of a job transition and I was actually deciding whether I was going to stay in the education space, I went in and I started looking to kind of see what jobs were out there and crypto recruits and all that sort of stuff. And going through and looking at the criteria and then looking at the questions. And I didn't end up applying for any of them because I ended up going over to TAFE Queensland. But what it could maybe is that practice of going through and looking at the questions that are on the job application and how you're going to answer them, not necessarily. And it's the same when you're applying for awards, it's all about the art and the craft of like how you're answering those questions. So it could be good practice, but maybe just don't get, deterred if you never get a response, but just going in, looking, what are the questions that they're asking? What are the experience that they're looking for? What's the expectations? So it could just maybe be some good practice.
Well, I think we're all going to race off and watch the Matildas beat Denmark now, aren't we?
Yes, we are gonna wrap it up. So thank you very much, everyone. And for speaking of events, the last thing that I will say, ATB always has their meetup on the very first Wednesday of the month, and next month, which is the 6th, I believe. It's the 6th of September. We are talking about crypto debanking and the whole situation that's going on with the banks at the moment and crypto exchanges. We've got Jess from the CEO of Cointree, and then we're also going to be talking about the future of stable coins. And we got Erez from Stables, the CEO and co-founder of Stables, and they're also going to be giving away $500 in stable coins. So a lot of incentive to make it down to that event. So highly recommend anyone that is in town to do that. I know Vanessa would be a bit far from you, but anybody that is not in Brisbane, go to your local meetups, get connected to your local community, and have fun. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Kevin. Everyone have a good night. And yeah, go Matildas. I won't be watching it, but.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Danielle. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.